Computer. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Jenny G. Cousins, and this is Soul to Soul Connections with Jenny G. Now, to see all the shows, please subscribe to my YouTube channel to make sure that you can catch them all. There's a lot more exciting interviews coming. You can also catch me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Jenny Cousins. So I'm out there. So keep up with the updates, everyone. Now, on today's show, I have a very exciting guest. He is worldly connected with the universe in many different ways, and his background is absolutely extraordinary. I can't even go on with everything that is about him, so I'm going to let him explain that even more so as we go through the interview. Now, please welcome Stephen Bogart LeBow from New York City. Yay! Thank you, Stephen.
Pleasure to be with you. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and be with you.
Oh, I'm just so excited. You know, I'm so excited to have you on the show. And I just want to give just our viewers just a little bit of a background of who you are, just in a little verg, and you can even elaborate more. Now, Stephen is a lawyer, writer, producer, reporter, political activist, broadcaster, journalist, real estate investor, spiritualist. You have done work with NBC, ABC, have awards in regards with the president of the Rose Garden of the White House, plus so much more. And we're going to elaborate on who Stephen is, why he's on the show today, and most importantly, I wanted to have you on the show because you came down with COVID-19 and you have and are still battling certain symptoms even after, I believe, 3 months or so. So can you share with us, first of all, before we even get involved with COVID, your middle name of Bogart? Because it's so extraordinary.
Thank you. Yes, Bogart is related to Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart actually is my godfather. My father was a pioneer in the radio TV broadcasting industry, and my father was on TV when Humphrey Bogart, of course, was a leading man and box office draw. And when Humphrey Bogart did The African Queen, my father was picked to be the MC to go in person live with Humphrey Bogart to show the movie, to open the movie at all the Lowe's movie theaters in and around New York, tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and other areas. So they spent quite a lot of time together over many months. And my father, of course, always admired him as an artist. But being together for quite some time, my father also came to admire him as a man, as a human being. He was very intellectual. He was a fighter for the little guy, for the common man. My father actually was in the limousine one time when Bogart was talking on the phone to the president and was fighting for the little guy in that conversation. And what happened was my mother was pregnant with me, and my parents had decided, if it was a male, Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall had a son by the name of Stephen, who is a couple years older than me. Later, they had a daughter by the name of Jennifer. But my parents knew that they were going to name me Stephen, and my parents gave me his middle name, Bogart, and Bogart is my godfather. And somewhere I have pictures of my father and Humphrey Bogart and others, when they were making the personal appearances. And through the years, I had occasion to meet and work with Lauren Bacall, and I've met with Stephen Bogart down in Florida, most recently a few years ago, because every year around this time of year in the fall, they have a Bogart festival that they hold in Key Largo, And I met with Stephen Bogart there. I'm so sorry. Let me get my dog. Milo, come here. Come on. Milo, I'm sorry. There's another dog across the street in the private house across the street.
Okay, so
And
they've
they've got
got that
they
connection.
have their own connection, their own language. Yeah, I have me right next to me. So I met with Stephen Bogart in Key Largo at the Bogart Festival, and it was great watching. And I encourage everybody to go. They have every year at this time of year, they have a Bogart Festival. You can actually also go on the boat that was used in the movie Casablanca, and
Oh,
not
yeah.
Casablanca. What am I talking? The African Queen, and they have a lot of very interesting things. And of course, you can sit and talk with Bogart and others that he has usually come and appear who participated in the movies, through the years.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know it's so interesting. I love that movie. Like, you know, with Humphrey Bogart and the African Queen. That was actually one of my favorite movies.
Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely
Everybody.
adored it.
Oh, that was great. And of course, people talk about Casablanca and
Yes.
The Have and Have Not and Key Largo and so many movies. And I guess I'm a little bit prejudiced. I don't think that the leading men and women of today compare to the leading men and women movie stars of yesteryear. I don't know. They have a special place in my heart.
Oh, I bet. I understand that. It's interesting how things really change, and it's in the same thing. I find that even with music, like back in the days, there was a lot of really good music with the Grammys, and things have really just changed, of course, as it would over the years. And it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to watch it this year now, because
Yeah,
it's not the same.
it's
You
not
know
the
what I mean? There's,
same.
of course, talent and very good actors and artists and such like that, but I know exactly what you mean. Now
Isn't
you,
that? Yeah.
sorry, go on.
No, I say, isn't that the truth? I think that they reported that the ratings went down for the
Yeah.
Grammys and the other music award shows. I agree with
Yes.
you.
Yes. Now you were involved with like creating like things for the radio stations around the New York area. And there is something about awards being with the president at the Rose Garden of the White House. Now how did that all come about? I'll let you explain that,
In
because
the
it's
80s, okay, in the period between the 80s and the 90s, um, I formed three different groups, ownership and operation groups, three different groups, and we were fortunate enough, thank God, to own and operate three different radio stations in the New York metropolitan area. WNJR 1430 AM, which was primarily a Black owned and operated station. My own ownership, I bought shares of stock from the famous singer Dionne Warwick, and we were in there with other owners. And we had WNWK, which was 105.9, which is the station that you're talking about. And it was a very unique station. We programmed 41 different languages and ethnic groups 24/7 on our station for the tri-state area. So, for example, the largest programming was Spanish, but unlike the other Spanish stations in the market, which catered to the Caribbean Spanish-speaking population, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and all, we had because the Spanish language and culture is not a monolithic culture. There's many different cultures from all the different countries. We had, Mexican and Argentinian and Ecuadorian and, so on and so forth. We had Greek programming, Italian programming. So we were the link between the home country of all the various immigrants and new Americans and their communities in the tri-state area. Because in the tri-state, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area, you have 20 plus million people, maybe more. And you have so many discrete communities of, Italian and Spanish speaking and so on and so forth. And we were giving them news and information of both the homeland and their community here in the tri-state area. And we also undertook a program to take the kids from the inner cities in Newark and in New York City. And we created some educational programs and mentorships and internships where they could come to our radio station, and we set it up with other companies where they could intern and meet with leaders of those companies and fast forward, I guess you would say, and give them a rich experience, educational and professional experience to their education. And in, you know, the real world, in the real business world or academia. We were cited by the President's Commission for Outstanding Public Service to the community for our radio station. We work very closely with Newark. We were technically licensed to Newark, New Jersey, and we worked with the mayor and the Board of Education, and, you know, as well as New York, of course. And we were cited by the President's Commission and invited to the White House, where we met with President Reagan, Rose Garden, and actually received awards for outstanding community service for our radio station and our work with the community. And ironically, President Reagan and my father were friends. They both went back because President Reagan, in the beginning of his career, actually was a broadcaster and a sports broadcaster and a sports fan, and knew my father back from those days when they were both in broadcasting together. And he was a fan of my father's and vice versa. So they used to correspond occasionally. And I remember my father had in his apartment a letter from President Reagan commending my father on some work that he had done.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was very and not only interesting, very rewarding, very gratifying.
Yeah, because he did like announcements even for the boxing championships.
Right.
Muhammad Ali and that.
My father worked. They created a computer model where they fed hundreds of thousands or millions bits of information on the top heavyweight fighters. They made the all-time heavyweight computerized championship of the world. And sports writers from all across the country, all the newspapers and all the media outlets from all across the country submitted the top names of heavyweights all through the ages. And my father, they put it into the computer, and in a very cold and analytical, like black and white computer printout would come out when they had fights, and my father would dramatize and broadcast the fights, which were aired on radio once a week. And it was an elimination tournament. And by the end of the tournament, Muhammad Ali and Rocky Marciano were the two finalists fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world. And this was the time period where Muhammad Ali resisted entering the draft and was home. And they penalized him, and he was unable to fight his pro fights for a period of 3 years there. And Muhammad Ali and an aging, retired Rocky Marciano got back into shape, and they went into the ring in Miami, where my father recreated that computer printout, and Muhammad Ali and Rocky Marciano enacted out that computer printout for the heavyweight championship of the world. And Angelo Dundee was there, and all the cast of characters that are around or were around Muhammad Ali.
Wow.
And they made that championship. And I remember Rocky Marciano was about 46 or 48 years old at that time. And I remember they were on the Merv Griffin show back in the day. And I remember meeting Rocky Marciano in the green room and shaking his hand. I was a young teenager, I guess, at that time. And I remember, oh my God, when I shook his hand, it was like shaking a brick, My hand didn't even make any kind of indentation at all on his hand. And it was literally, and his arms were like my legs.
Yeah.
And he was in incredible shape, even at the age of 46 or 48. And Muhammad Ali, you know, I don't have to tell you, he was, you know, pretty boy, you know, handsome, hell of a handsome uh, guy, and like a model, and the fastest and the best heavyweight that we had ever seen, you know, in our time. And those two went to battle it for the championship of the world. And yeah, it was exciting. And Rocky
Wow.
Marciano, tragically, unfortunately, shortly thereafter, died in a plane crash, a small plane crash, and died an early death, like
Mm.
48 or 49, something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And it was a great series that was on the radio, and then on TV, and was on closed circuit TV all around the world, and
Mm-hmm.
was repeated several times on ABC's Wide World of Sports and on CBS. And you can actually look it up, and you could
Mm-hmm.
see it, and you could buy the
Mm-hmm.
tape or video of the championship of the world on Amazon and eBay and those
Mm.
kind of.
Wow.
They later did a middleweight championship of the
Mm-hmm.
world.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Did the same thing with
Mm-hmm.
the championship middleweights. You were mentioning before the COVID-19.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that out too, because I mean that is, you know, like one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you, because just to let everybody know, Stephen's a dear friend of mine, has been for years, and also one of my lawyers in the US and who I trust. And also, that's another story. But anyways,
Thank you, thank
we
you,
won't
thank
even
you.
touch on that. It's all good. And, you know, when you told me that you were down with COVID, I'm like, oh my God. I think I was at the hospice and when you told me, and I'm like, oh dear Lord. So can you like share with our viewers, because I know that New York got hit so hard, and New York for me is so dear in my heart for so many reasons. I even had a client who passed on at the 9/11, you know, in the buildings, Twin Towers. And so when did you start first like getting symptoms? Like how did that go about?
Uh, it was in that period when we first started to learn about it in February.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so glad that you asked me about that, because it angers me so much. I have to tell you that like half the population is still, even at this late date, it's like 10 months later or nearly a year later, and it's like half the population is still in denial, and it's a hoax, and it's not really true, and there are all kinds of conspiracy theories and all that.
Yeah.
And I am here to tell you, no, it's very serious. It's very real, and you can die from it. And no, it's not like the flu, because the flu, you know, you're sick for a few days or a week, and yes, in a rare instance, someone can die from the flu or pneumonia, but they have vaccines, and it's not like the flu at all. And the COVID-19, I got in February. I would say it was around the third week of February. Nobody knew about it then. And then when we did first hear about it and we started to deal with it, everybody thought at that time that it was some kind of a respiratory illness. It affected everybody's breathing, a cough, a sore throat, or this or that or the other. Well, I had none of those symptoms. I never had a problem breathing. I never had a problem with my chest. I never had a sore throat. I didn't have any of those things. But I had a fever like you get with the flu. I had like 102 fever, and
Mm-hmm.
my entire body ached like you get in a severe flu. And I had that for a good 3 weeks. No matter what I did, I could not get that fever below 102. And with the help of all kinds of supplements and different things I was taking, thank God I didn't have to go to the hospital. But I didn't have those symptoms, and it's not, as I said, it's not a respiratory illness. We now, with the passage of time, and we're learning more about it, there really is some kind of an illness, some kind of a virus that seems to attack your immunity system. and can attack you anywhere and everywhere in your body. So that's why people are, myself included, are talking about ailments and effects to different parts of your body, to your head, to your migraines, to fever. Some, of course, yes, respiratory. People that have preconditions, people that have diabetes or had a heart attack or any kind of a problem. But it seems to be attacking, your immunity system. And the other thing people don't realize is they're talking about deaths, and they're talking about, and on the other side of the spectrum, they're talking about it like a flu. But and I'm sad to say, it's sad to say that at this point, at like 10 months later or so, we just hit the 12 million in the United States. We hit the 12 million mark. 12 million people have gotten it, and 250,000 people have died. And even now, the president got it, a couple of weeks ago, and now the president's son, they just reported yesterday, and Rudy Giuliani's son, and everybody,
Donald Trump's son you're
and
talking about. Okay,
everybody around the White House, has it, and they reported over 100 Secret Service men protecting the president and vice president and the White House and all that are in quarantine now with coronavirus. And it's sad to see that people aren't taking the proper precautions. And I urge everybody, you have to mask up and you have to socially distance. And it's the patriotic thing to do. And it's the conscious and conscientious thing to do for the love of your neighbor and your family and for yourself. Because you have no idea how and when and where you're going to catch it. You absolutely do not have any idea, and it's silly, and it's just downright stupid for people to ignore science and ignore medicine and all the tips from all the healthcare providers. In my own case, I could tell you I don't know where I got it. I can give you a few different possibilities, but ironically, I may have gotten it from my mother-in-law. So to speak. I may have gotten it from the public. I may have gotten it from throwing out garbage in front of my house. But my mother-in-law came down earlier in like first week of February with the flu or something like that, and was in the hospital for a few days and was out and recuperated. But sure enough, about a week later, she came down again, and we took her to the hospital. We took her to one of the prominent hospitals in Manhattan, in New York. And then, we went there also to bring her clothes and all that. After that, we were no longer able to see her. They first started to implement the quarantine and all the safeguards for the COVID-19. And just coincidentally, that was the first time in New York where it was known that people had COVID-19. And they identified a particular gentleman and a family in New Rochelle that had it. And the son went to school in New York City. And they identified that family. Well, sure enough, it turns out, we later learned, that gentleman and that family were transferred from New Rochelle, Westchester County, to that hospital in Manhattan where she was. All right, about a week later, we took her out of the hospital. I picked her up and took her out of the hospital. And a couple of days later, again, back to the house to give them some cooked food. And of course, I hugged her and kissed her. Oh, it's wonderful that you're feeling better and you're out of the hospital. And that may be how I got the coronavirus. So
yeah,
I'll never
don't know.
But that's the point. You just don't know.
So when
and back in that time, it was so severe in New York. Imagine, I had it for nearly 3 months. For nearly 3 months. I'm lying in bed. It took all my strength that I could muster up, physically, mentally, emotionally, all my strength, like for the day, to muster up, to be able to go, to get enough strength and energy to be able to go from the bed to the bathroom. And I'd go to the bathroom and I'd say, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I have to go back to bed. And I'd go back to bed and I'd fall asleep again for another 3 hours. But here I am, I'm lying in the bed. I can't do anything. I can't go anywhere. I have no energy. I'm on the phone looking at my social media. and posting something and reading some messages, you know, or emails. And then I see people at that time saying, no, it's a hoax and it's not true. And here I am, I'm saying, yes, it is true. It's very true. And I'm one of them. I've had this for 3 months. What are you talking about? And, you know, now we see the spread. Those deniers, you know, I guess they have to change their story because it's spread all around the country. And,
When
and incredible, incredible, incredible.
when you were diagnosed with it, like intuitively, how did you feel at that point? Like, did you say, you know what, I'm going to get through this, or did you have those like, I'm sure I'm going to get through that, but then in the back of your mind, you know, we can bring in certain fears, especially with how many people have passed on. I mean, I work on call at a hospice and see people die every day, and see their families grieving and suffering on the patient.
So it's so sad. Yeah, it's so sad.
Oh, yeah.
No, I knew intuitively, I knew immediately that I was sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew, and I had to schedule an appointment to get the test. And and back at that time, I had to wait in order to get an appointment to take the test. But I knew I was sick from the outset. And I had, like I told you, I had 102 fever and I was freezing. If you may recall, and for viewers who watch CNN, back at that time that I was sick, around the same time, a week later or so, Chris Cuomo on CNN also got coronavirus, and he was sick in his home. He like quarantined in the basement of his home, and he was talking about he was so cold, his teeth were chattering, and all his clothes on and blankets and all. And he said his teeth were chattering so much he actually cracked a tooth or some teeth. I had the same thing. I had the heater on. I had the heat of the house on. I had 4 blankets on, and still somehow there was like I don't know how to explain it, but it was nothing that I ever felt like before.
Oh, we're kind of losing the video here. Wait, hold on. I can't hear you. Stephen, I can't hear you for some reason. Oh no. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. I don't know what's going on. We've lost audio on you for some reason. So I don't, uh-oh. I can't hear a word you're saying actually. Yeah, this is, oh no. Yeah.
I cannot hear you.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Now, okay, now we're back.
Now I can.
Oh,
Yes.
now we're back.
Now we're back. So yes, thank goodness sakes, you know, you technical issues, we have to surrender them at certain times, right?
Yes.
Now you are still, like, even after 3 months, even with how you're feeling, I know you're not 100%. I know that.
I'm many months since it, because I had the end of February, March, April, May, you know, into the beginning of June. So now look how many months later. We're in November, almost in December.
Yes.
And I will tell you, and I belong also to a support group online. Yep. And for all those viewers, there actually is online a support group for people who've experienced COVID-19.
Yes.
And I could share with you, and if you want to email me, Law LeBow, LAWLEBOW at AOL.com, or you could see me on Facebook. So many months later, there are a lot of people with long-term issues. I have discovered that I have memory loss or recounting certain things that I never in my lifetime had before. I have issues of dizziness and vertigo that I never had in my life before. I have migraine headaches I had before many years ago, but I have them back again now. I have energy issues. Everybody's complaining about all the things that I'm telling you now. Everybody's complaining about energy issues, which appear in 2 different ways. I'm way, way, way better than years ago. But one way was, you know, you'd have energy for like 4 hours, and then after that, you'd have to go to sleep. All right, I'm way past that. and I have more energy and strength and all that. But I'll have it appear in another way, where I may be fine for a week, and then all of a sudden the next day, for no reason, like no apparent reason at all, I'll wake up in the morning and I feel horrible, and I cannot even get out of bed. And I'll have energy issues like that. And then the next day I'm fine again. And I hear others also reporting the same thing.
Yeah.
So I get energy issues, you know, in strength issues in two different ways. At times my whole body aches that I never had before. Yes, I have a little bit of arthritis, as we all do as you're getting older, but I never had that. Where again, it's like when you have the flu and your whole body aches, I'll get that. So and I just heard a report on CBS yesterday, as a matter of fact, where they're talking about all these long-term issues. And I got to tell you something else. When I recuperated and I was seen by two different COVID-19 doctors, one doctor, and I'm going to those issues and immunity and all that. The bottom line of what I'm trying to say is it's still too new, and the answer is they don't know. So always go conservative and cautious in however you're proceeding. The first doctor said to me that he'd been in this area his entire professional career. He was in Hawaii. He came to New York a couple years ago. He said that I scored one of my dubious distinctions. I scored like the highest of anybody recently on the antibody test and the immunity test. When I took the test, I had like the highest score. So I said, yeah, that and that and a Metro card will get me on the subway. I tend to take everything with a grain of salt, and I try to be conservative. And he said to me that he also had experienced COVID-19. He said to me, you know what, we only became aware of it in January, February, but he said, you know what, now looking in retrospect, he said, I now realize that I had patients from Europe in December, and in January, he said that I'm sure had COVID-19 and they were here now. I was treating them now in New York, New Jersey area. And he said that later in January, he had a Chinese gentleman from the Chinese mission to the UN, and that's where he believes he caught his coronavirus from. But he said to me, you know, now you have immunity and you're good for life. I don't know. I took that with a grain of salt. I don't believe it. The next day or 2 days later, I had another interview with another coronavirus doctor who also went over, you know, my whole situation, and that now I was negative in my antibody test and all that. And she said to me the exact opposite. She said to me, don't believe anything. She said, everything is still too new. We don't know enough about it, and we don't know the long-term effects of it. And here I am now also, I'm reporting effects of the COVID-19 some 10 months later that I still have. And they said, don't believe that about the immunity. Because even, I'll give you an example, even with the flu, people go and get a flu shot every year. So that doesn't mean you're immune for life. People are getting a flu shot because the flu shot is good for a season or maybe a year. Well, the same thing here. Everybody is placing their hopes on a coronavirus vaccine. We don't know yet. It's still too new. Hopefully it'll work, God willing. I hope so. But we don't know how long it will last or anything else.
Are you going to get vaccinated? Like, are you going to get the vaccine?
I will get vaccinated. Honestly, I also am thinking about whether I want to be the first one, you know, among the first ones to get vaccinated. That raises another whole issue about the coronavirus, because here, I could tell you just off the cuff, it's like half the population does not want to get vaccinated. They want to vaccinate the entire population of 330 Americans, and of course in all the other countries. Well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to do that and to administer to so many? And they want to give everybody 2 dosages of it. But half the population doesn't even want to take the vaccine, and they think they're just naturally against it, or they think all kinds of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, because you were mentioning, when we were talking even last night, you were mentioning how, you know, Donald Trump was very much aware of it, the virus, earlier, and said nothing about it or something, or?
Well, in the book by by Woodward, Bob Woodward, who I love and admire. Woodward and Bernstein uncovered the Watergate corruption under President Nixon many years ago. And Bob Woodward interviewed him, President Trump, for his second book on President Trump. And in that book and in those series of interviews, it came out that Donald Trump knew about this in January 28th, and even in February 8th, and covered it up. He never revealed it to the American population. And if you look at all those early interviews, he talks about how it's going to go away, and it's when the warm weather comes in the spring, it's going to go away, and all kinds of things. He was in total denial and covered it up. So of course I don't blame Donald Trump for coronavirus, but I do blame the Trump administration for the way they handled the coronavirus, because we were fortunate during the Ebola crisis when Biden was in office with Obama. We only had 2 deaths, in the United States at that time. Now we have 250,000 deaths. And I feel that so many people could have been spared this, that there was no reason for it. And I have friends and family, as we all do now, that ran the whole spectrum. I have some that just had it for a few days, and I have some who sadly passed away. One of my own doctors passed away, Dr. Goodrich, who operated on me many years ago. Dr. Goodrich was known for separating the conjoined twins, and he was one of the best doctors in the world and one of the nicest human beings I've ever met in my entire life. He passed away from the coronavirus back in May or June, in his 50s.
Yeah, the age is irrelevant, of course. Like I had a friend of mine who was younger. They ended up in the hospital with the virus. And of course, no family members were allowed. And he had to say goodbye to his daughter on an iPad. The nurse was literally holding the iPad to him as his daughter said goodbye to him. And my other friend had to stay in an RV away from his family, and battle it with it then. So the age, of course, it affects, older people greatly, but it affects all people of all ages. It's like even a hospice, right? They're like, oh, it's mainly old people. No, it's not. It is not.
It's not.
I've worked at the hospice on and off for years, and there's people in their 20s who we have come in that have passed, So the virus will hit anybody, and it affects everybody differently. And that's the thing. It's like, just if you don't believe in the masks or anything, please go out and at least wear one in sake of other people, and wash your hands. You know what I mean?
Correct.
It just really makes me angry. Even at my mom's place where she's at, there's I was really upset because this was the second time an outbreak was there because the staff was not wearing masks.
Oh, wow.
And I hit the fan, and needless to say, long story short, it was on global news. I had enough. So I had enough. So now you worked with also, I'm just a little off topic here. You also worked with Miss Martin King.
Martin Luther King, Mrs.
Martin
King.
Luther King.
Yes. King. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I worked with, being involved with the radio stations back in the day and working on WNWK and WNJR. I was involved with Mr. Harold Sims and Jerry Chrisman, who were partners and directors and officers of the radio station. And they were also part of the Martin Luther King Foundation. And I worked with them in honoring Martin Luther King and creating the Martin Luther King holiday, and also bringing the Martin Luther King holiday with then Governor Thomas Kean to New Jersey. And had the pleasure and the honor of working with her in person and her daughter when they came to New Jersey, and we worked together. So that, and also continuing their projects. that they were working on, and we continued them in the New York, New Jersey area. And it was a distinct privilege and honor.
Oh, that's amazing. Because you were talking about also the former judge J. Stewart Dankberg
Yes,
with Donald Trump.
I work with former Judge J.
Yeah,
Stewart
explain
Dankberg.
about that.
He was some 25 years or more in the court system, and he was a landlord-tenant judge, a civil court judge, and Supreme Court judge in New York, and I work with him and in private practice. And back in the day, Judge Dankberg had one of the Donald Trump cases where he was a landlord of one of his Central Park South properties. And Judge Dankberg decided against Donald Trump, and it's actually a historic decision in the law books. And he decided against Donald Trump, and Jay Dankberg has the distinction of being the first and the only judge that Donald Trump has never appealed, because the decision was so thoroughly researched and reasoned and well written that there was nothing they could do. It was airtight. There was nothing they could do. And I remember when Donald Trump was taking office and they were doing history on his background, they came to interview Judge Dankberg on that because he has that a historic.
Wow. And you made a prediction about Donald Trump. I remember you telling me about that. What was your prediction?
4 or 5 years ago, well, let me backtrack for a minute. I do have some of God's gifts,
Yes.
used if and when he so chooses to help people.
Spiritually connected.
Spiritually connected, and at times clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, remote viewing. And 4 or 5 years ago, when he was running, I said that Donald Trump would be impeached. And everybody thought I was crazy. And sure enough, yes, Donald Trump was impeached. He was not convicted, but yes, he was impeached. I also said, and we'll see what happens now in the remaining 60 days or so of his term, but I also said that I did not see him finishing his term, that I thought that he would leave before the end of his term, and he would say that he did all he hoped to do, hoped to accomplish to make America great again, and that for health reasons and family reasons, business reasons, he was leaving. And he would leave office and turn the reins over to Vice President Pence, who would become acting president. And he would seek a pardon from Pence, much like Richard Nixon did with President Ford, of any possible federal crimes or wrongdoing that he may have committed. So that's what I predicted, and let's see what happens over the next 60 days. But it looks more and more like it's heading that way. More and more people are talking about it. When I first said it many years ago, people thought I was crazy. Now people see that coming into focus.
Yeah, no, I get that. Now you also like, you know, during 9/11, you know, of course, how that affected literally everything. I mean, I lost a client in the Twin Towers, as I said, and nobody will, you know, I mean, it affected everybody, of course. With you being like New Yorker, I love my New Yorkers. I can tell you that my New Yorker people, I love and adore them. So,
all right.
Yeah,
and we adore you back, and we love you back, and we adore you back.
Bring on CBS, NBC.
you are a citizen of the world.
Yes. Oh, totally.
Not merely Canada.
Yeah. No, I'm a little bit of everything. As everybody, like I get people call me the international lioness.
I like that. Well, I'll tell you something about 9/11. In my own case, I seem to to be a little bit more intuitive in the political area and current events area. I've had quite a few incidents of that, which I won't go into here, but except
Yeah.
the 9/11 that you were referring to, I knew, and people around me heard me express it. I knew that we were going to be attacked by terrorists on the World Trade Center. I didn't know exactly the date and time. I didn't know it was 9/11. But on the weekend before, if I recall correctly, memory serves me correctly, 9/11 was on a Tuesday morning, about 8:50 in the morning, 9 a.m. in the morning. Well, Sunday night, I remember this like yesterday, and of course, oh my God, it's almost 20 years ago. I was sitting eating dinner, a late dinner, with my son Adam and his mother Graciela, and I said at that time, and people all around me know, I said at that time that we were going to be attacked. The World Trade Center was going to be hit, and I said to Adam, you know, we've been to the World Trade Center, but I never took you to the top of the World Trade Center. So we need to go, and we need to go now. We need to go soon. That was on a Sunday night. So we made plans to go atop the World Trade Center that coming week. Well, sure enough, some 36 hours or less after I said that, on late Sunday night, on Tuesday morning, 8:50 in the morning, somewhere or thereabouts, we were attacked. 9/11. And the minute we were attacked, my wife called me and she said, and I heard on the radio, my wife called me and she said, I was taking my son to school. I had just dropped him off at school and I was taking the dog for a walk. I was in my car. She called me and she said, oh my God, they said a plane or a helicopter, something happened. Somebody smashed into the World Trade Center. And I said to her, stop, we're being attacked. That's what I was talking about. I said, I know you're preparing to go downtown to work. Do not go to work. Stop where you are. I'll be home as soon as I can. And that was it. Yeah, I knew it right then and there. And then when I got home and I was waiting for the elevator to go upstairs, she called again to tell me the second tower was hit. And I said, I know. I said, I knew it. I told you so.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, yeah, we all had people that we knew there, and stories of people who we knew who passed, and some who, through the grace of God, for some freakish reason, one reason or another, escaped it. I had one very close friend and classmate of mine in law school who was working for the Port Authority at that time. And he had to take his son. He had a son that had some learning disability. He had to take his son to school in New Jersey instead of his wife taking his son to school. Normally, he usually went to that 9/11 to the World Trade Center very early. He would be there early, and he would have perished. Anyway, because his wife couldn't take his son to school, and he did. He didn't get there at his usual 8 o'clock or something like that. And he was on the way to the World Trade Center when it hit. And because of that delay, and I have others, that I knew also, of course, that they escaped it, because of one reason or another. And it's just sad. But yeah, it changed. Since then, the whole world has changed. It's been incredible.
Absolutely. If you could meet one person who is alive or who has passed on, who would that be and why?
Oh boy, look at that question you gave me. That's a difficult one. There are many, but I guess the first one, the one that comes to mind may be Franklin Delano Roosevelt, because and especially in this time now, because when you think back into history, he dealt with these problems maybe even more serious than we have now, and they had never faced before to this extent. They had a terrible depression, and everybody was out of work, and World War, and he had to get the country back on track and put people to, and he did so, put people back to work and create work programs and infrastructure programs. And at the same time, he was battling the politics within Washington, where he tried to do things for workers. and I guess back in the day also, then they were calling him, I don't know what, socialist or this or that or the other, just because he was, providing work programs for people. And back in the war, he fought his own battles. He came down with polio, and he had to overcome that, while leading the country, in the creation of so many programs, Social Security and all that. So perhaps Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Now,
Yeah,
I know we've talked about this, of course, a few different times, and you are the CEO and president also of New Spirits Networking.
New Spirit Network, right?
Yeah, networks, and with the whole experience, especially with COVID, that you've really, been through. You've been through like 9/11, COVID, like just so many different things, of course. Where do you see yourself going? Or where would you like to be, let's say, in the next 5 years? Especially with creating your network even more so, spiritually.
I'm going to, we started a process again of relaunching New Spirit Network. And we did some programming, which was heard out west over some of the CBS network stations a few years ago. Salute to Our Heroes, in which we focused on ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And people who were teachers or emergency workers and doing extraordinary things, and we highlighted that on broadcast. Now, fast forward to today, what do we see again? The people that were kind of, I don't want to say taken advantage of, let's say taken for granted, assumed, and not really highlighted. Those essential workers are what got us through to today. I have a niece who's an emergency worker in the ambulance and putting her life on the line every day in New York, saving people from COVID-19. And she would tell me stories, and thank God, she's okay health-wise and every other way. And she would tell me stories we don't even think about, because they get a call and they respond in emergency to an emergency call. Now she goes upstairs to an apartment. I hadn't even conjured this up in my mind. She says, I go to an apartment, and she has, let's say, a coworker with her, maybe with her and maybe waiting in the ambulance. And she says, I'm there in emergency to take care of what we think is a COVID-19 patient. And I walk into the apartment, there's a house full of people there, a dozen people. She said, I don't know any of them, and I don't know who of them have COVID-19. She said, and they're all asking me questions and they're all demanding my attention. She said, I never experienced anything like that in all my life. And these workers, God bless them, the doctors, the nurses, the emergency workers. I have another client nurse who just told me a couple of weeks ago she's taking a leave of absence because she has PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. She's been doing this every day for 10 months under extreme circumstances, day after day after day after day. Incredible. And I think now what we need to do is, and I think at this time period and going forward, this COVID-19 is changing so many things in this world. We're going to see a new spirit for the new you, and everybody has to adapt, and everybody is going to be operating under new paradigms and new ways to work. And I think the New Spirit Network will offer spiritual as well as alternative and new ways to function, to work, for your health, for alternative health, for all kinds of things, in every way imaginable. I think we're going to be entering a new world.
Absolutely.
And I hope to offer that through, and again, we're dealing with new technologies also. So again, through audio and video, Before it would be on our television. Now it's not. And
Yeah.
even before, even a couple of years ago, we would say through the computer. And
Yeah.
even now, it's not even through the computer. It's more so. It's through your phone. Everybody's got a device, a tablet, a phone.
Yeah.
Most people now are actually getting their news and information from their phone.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So new programming for the new spirit, for the new you, through your phone, through your tablet, through your computer, through
Yes.
regular terrestrial radio and TV,
Yes.
offering,
So
offering in those different areas. And we have a number of different um, doctors and therapists and spiritualists and healers offering, and people also in the business world offering different information and advice
mhm.
in this changing world that we're now seeing and going to see.
Absolutely. I know, like, even with me, like, with it affects everybody differently, of course. And I mean, I spend more time alone than anything anyways. So,
Yeah.
um, but like, even with COVID, for me personally, it's been a real blessing because I have started so many different projects that I had to put on hold for so long.
Yeah.
And, like, I get different messages from people, asking for help and such like that. And especially working at the hospice, one of the saddest things, I've seen many things, of course, but the hospice was just one of the saddest things I, saw at the hospice, without going into details, of course, was there was a wedding. We had a wedding at the hospice. And of course, the bride passed on, within 3 days later, of course.
Oh my God. So
You know what
sad.
I mean? And just, little things like that. It just, I take a tragedy or a traumatic event and I turn it around to the positive. And
Right.
it's like pain, pain for me, it pushes me. It's like so much pain that I've experienced personally from many different things. It's really transformed me and transcended me to a whole different way on such a profound level I can't even go. I'm doing a complete 180. Started
Right.
it a
Beautiful.
little while
Beautiful.
ago. You know what I
Beautiful.
mean? And
Yeah.
it's all about being authentic to who you are, listening within to your inner guru within, and hearing your soul speak. So if somebody asked you, especially now with everything, they said, Stephen, what is your definition of God?
I would have to say it's love, and love and connecting with your fellow man,
Mhm.
and with the universe.
Yes. Yes, we are connected as one. We are one.
Right.
As I call it, like, I meditate twice a day, in the morning and then at evening. And like, for me, my meditations, because I also do pranic healings and such, I send out healing vibes to the whole humanity species, to Mother Earth in the morning and at night, and to all of humanity, to bring them more peace, abundance, prosperity, kindness, and love. And it's
Amen.
like, even people that I'm not really connected with, who I've ended a lot of friendships and stuff like that as well. I always send them a lot of love and
Right.
prosperity, abundance, and peace as well. Because even for me, the whole experience has gravitated me in a different area, bringing out more of who I am, that I gave my power away many different times. So it's been a real blessing, real blessing.
Yes.
Yeah. And speaking to you, I wanted to connect with you, and getting messages from you and your journey with COVID. I'm like, oh my God, I was like, just putting you in my meditation, that you'll get through this okay
Thank
and
you. Thank you.
everything. And oh, of course, of
And I
course.
see that we have a lot of work still ahead of us, and
Oh,
to help the others, help the others
mhm,
to make it through it,
absolutely. So if
and
there's any,
to empower others
uh,
to
yes,
help themselves to better health and prosperity and well-being. That's
absolutely.
That's the mission. And
Yeah,
that's what you and I are here to do.
yeah, no, absolutely, because
And I
everybody, of
feel that
course.
I
Mhm.
feel that coming through you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like bringing out the best in others, helping
Yeah.
them, get off the ground, to bring back their power, and I always say this, I don't know how many times I've seen this, even no matter how many shows I do, it's to everybody, please don't be so hard on yourself,
Yeah.
because everybody is struggling in their own way.
Right. Correct.
You know what I mean? And the worst thing that anybody can do is judge anybody.
Correct.
You know
Correct.
what I mean? Everybody has their own journey of their soul's evolution and awakening. And when somebody is, going on a different path or doing things that you're not in agreements with, it doesn't matter, because that's their journey, regardless of what. And we all have different lessons to learn. But
Correct.
the
And a
most,
lot of times you don't know what somebody else is going through just
oh,
looking at them superficially. You have no idea till
yeah,
you walk in their shoes. Yeah. I agree.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is so important. Even if others have done you wrong, it's all about forgiving them from within your heart, in your own way. You don't have to
I
physically
agree with that.
say
Yeah.
it to them face to face or whatever. It's so you can walk away in peace within yourself, learn the lessons, learn the journey within, to help you transcend and push you forward to transform, you know,
Yeah.
and it really, I'm an observer. I observe so many things and I keep quiet
Yeah.
about things,
Me too.
and everybody sees things, of course, through their level of perception,
Yeah.
and regardless of who is president, who's the leader, who's in power, there's always good and bad in anyone.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Regardless of what. So I don't judge others. I look back and I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Oh my God. But again, it's just like, let's just surrender this with more peace and love and light. Let's just send them like clarity and to
Correct.
stay aligned
Correct.
in unconditional love and kindness. That's so important. So now, is there any last thing that you would like to say, Stephen, before we sign off?
As Jimi Hendrix said, when the power of love exceeds the love of power, then and only then. And as you were expressing, then and only then will we succeed. And as Thomas Jefferson said, all that evil needs to do to succeed is for good men to do nothing. That's why it's time for all of us now to take, it begins with us to take action, to do what we
Yes,
need to do to make this a better world. And
absolutely.
another saying that I liked, which I heard Bobby Kennedy say, but I know it comes from years ago. I think Edmund Burke, was something to the effect: some men see things as they are, and say or ask why, and
Mhm.
I see things that are not, and ask why not.
Yeah.
And that's what I seek to do. Also, I usually seek to try to transform things, hopefully for the better.
Absolutely.
For the good of all. Yeah.
We can only do our best.
Yeah.
Like with me, even whenever I'm with a client, I give them my insights, of course. And, at the very end, it comes down to them when they're ready to,
Yeah.
make decisions or to change things, go in a different direction or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's all about them on their journey. It's like a mom. You can be there, you can give your insights and love, but then you have to let that child or person or whoever it is release
Yes.
them into the world with love and
Yes.
wish them the best without, attaching to certain outcomes and situations with them, right?
Yes.
So we all have our own journey. The second a soul is born into the world, boom, they're on their own karmic, soul evolutionary journey.
Amen.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Everything you say, I agree with you.
yes.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Stephen.
Thank you
Again,
for sharing this time with me. Thank you.
oh, of course, of course, absolutely. I'm so glad that we finally connected
Me too.
again. And I just
And
want to thank everyone else also who, is watching. You can catch more shows on my YouTube channel when you subscribe.
And
You
soon
catch,
New Spirit Networks,
yes,
soon.
yes, absolutely. And Stephen, where can somebody find you if they wanted to get in touch with you for whatever
You can
reason?
look for me on Facebook on Stephen LeBow, or better, Stephen Bogart LeBow. Email LawLeBow, LAWLEBOW, at AOL.com, or newspiritnetwork@gmail.com. And you can get to me through there. Thank you. It's really been a pleasure. It's been wonderful. And,
Yes.
and Milo thanks you.
Yes, Milo. I can hear Milo. He's like, okay, that means I get a treat or something now. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in. This is Soul to Soul Connections with Jeni G. I'm your host, Jeni G. Cousins, and Milo in the background, clearly barking away. So
Milo.
I will, Stephen, stay on
Okay.
just right after this. So until then, everyone, stay in much gratitude. Be grateful for everything you have. There's many people out there who don't have food, who don't have shelter, who have nothing. So send them love, send them light from the Holy Spirit, and bless them with much love, light, and kindness. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, take care.